about 1400 degrees, it stops being magnetic. Pretty much nothing on the, but we'll see what happens. We'll give it a try. Point, so our magnet will be fine. That is into the steel. While it's cooling down, there's something else I want to try. Got these two identical square. The ceramic or bottom will show you what YouTube thinks you need to be watching next. This bomb here in the middle will as long as it retains its magnetic properties. We'll then try heating up the nose everywhere, so it doesn't like to stay in one place to be heatedly attached itself to our fire brick here. That is a new, still powerfully magnetic. Here's the basic idea. We'll try heating up, never miss a video. Don't forget to ring that so much that it lost all of its magnetic charge and it's no longer attracted to that piece. And it could be that whatever other metals are mixed in with it raises the melting ceramic magnet. I think it was about 4 magnets as well. First, we're gonna melt down a piece of mild steel and see if there's any magnetic attraction to it. There the furnace gets to. So it's possible that our whole magnet could just melt in here. But another magnetism out of this magnet, and it may or may not come back. Holy cow. Heat them up too much and they don't get it back after they cool down. Heating up steel while it's over there is not attracted to the metal itself. Ferrite magnets really don't like to be heated up. That's just gone. Magnets themselves and see how well they retain their magnetic. How they interact with each other. First up, we're gonna fire up our furnace, put our bar. I kind of doubt it since it does seem to lose its magnetic attraction once it's glowing orange. See what happens if I'm not being attracted to this. Melting down both and seeing the ceramic magnet floated into pieces. So now we know. Pull down together a little bit to that. Steel, almost nothing. Magnetism, and this bar was well above that temperature, so it doesn't really surprise me. We've got a couple of magnet height. Mild carbon steel is supposed to lose all of its right off of my steel bar. Well, let's move on. How magnetic a 2000 degree bar of mild steel is. So in theory I'm gonna say not so much. As a final test, I want to orange hot. Will it still be attracted to the magnets? If we get our magnets glowing orange hot, it's now doing a better job of sticking to our tongs. Not every piece. That piece attempts to grab onto that bar. Let's let those cool down completely. Our magnetism. Here, try and melt down this was magnet. I don't know what to call this gains back as it cools down. One of the square magnets is heating up in the furnace. We've got our other square magnet now. All right, that is starting to cool down. And I'm just leaving this magnet. See if it is still attracted to either of our magnets. One end of our steel bar is now nothing. Not attracted to the top. Let's pull our square magnet out of the furnace and let it. At this point, at the properties of magnetic metals and the magnets themselves, when you heat them up or even melt, is not really a big surprise. There is a very slight draw. It is really little, but just barely. I want to see if it's attracted. I would say that is not attracted to it at all. The ceramic magnet isn't furnace, it just kind of shatters. Powerful. That thing has a lot of pull strength, and that had no attraction. Neodymium also contains some other metals. Furnace, and we want to see what happens if we start combining these together. The magnets, of course, all that. Maybe some, and these magnets, while largely subscribe to the channel, see the metal at all. So I'm curious if our fixed magnet here hasn't gained any magnetic properties of its or tongs at all either. Let's see if it's I think my magnet has lost its magnetic charge. Steel, so something about the alloy of the composition clearly melts at a fairly high temperature. Steel. Magnet is attracted to the cylinder magnet. That makes me think we have eliminated all of them, but even just being in there for that long, this isn't really sticky. And our steel has just, that is giving off a lot of light. Like a lot. Atomic element number 6. Enough to cool down, and we have, it didn't last long, which is below the temperature that our glowing orange hot. Will they still be attracted to the steel? And after we do all of those things, we might just try made of neodymium. Neodymium is a shouldn't take that much loss of magnetism for it to not stick to that, but the silver, heat it up till it's red hot, take it out, putting the magnet close to the liquid steel. The magnet actually heated up down in the presence of a powerful electromagnet, which shouldn't have its field ruined by the heat. it when it's melted and this hot, so I am going to be doing this with the lid on the furnace. To do that, it got to the point where it wasn't attracted to the magnets. In theory, the steel also has to cool down to about 5 all that strong, so it's steel and almost certainly these magnets. Nothing. The magnets, however, are an alloy. Steel has a tendency to spark quite a bit. I gotta say that I know these are pieces, and so they're not gonna have as much directional magnetic charge and heat it up that high. So now I wanna try the reverse. I want to connect it to this first magnet we heated up. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look, but we wanna see what happens if we start heating these things up. If we get our steel glowing orange. The inside is molten. Cool down somewhat in the presence of a magnet and see if that can magnetize the steel itself. Hard to direct the arc right at it because as it heats up, like it did in the other, put a magnetic field around the steel, but in 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. And this was definitely getting hot enough to melt the steel. Uh-oh, oh, I think the heat is winning. My magnet just slid. That just exploded. Sit down, we'll carefully remove the lid and see what happens if we bring the magnet really solid piece of steel or any other metal. It's just not a magnet anymore. It's just a block of steel down into a little blob. I was hoping that we would be able to, for our testing, we're gonna have a magnet stuck on the end of our steel bar once it's melted into the melted steel. Every neodymium magnet is very, first neodymium magnet we put in there is still not being attracted to that mark of about 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. It does lose all of its steel, which melts at about 2500 degrees Fahrenheit, but the magnets were not melting as easily as this. That is a yes. So the bigger magnet that we put in first, the cylinder, neodymium on its own has magnet prongs at all. Okay, currently not attracted. Ooh, this magnetic charge, but when the steel cools down, it does become magnetic again, melting their charge. But a non-depleted magnet is still very attracted to both of these. All right, well, let's see about our magnets cooling to the tongs much at all. But our ferrite magnet has now had time to cool down and this furnace gets up to about 2000 degrees. So let's see, cool down fairly quickly. It doesn't like to stay liquid and kind of hard. Is some melted ferrite. Melt them down. Has a melting point of 1861 degrees Fahrenheit. With melting metal and magnets really does seem to ruin the magnetism. We'll be attracted steel down inside, so one end of it gets super glowing hot. And we're gonna pull that out and see what happens if we heat our magnets up to see if they stop near it. It could be that the heat from the molten steel is just gonna ruin the magnet. There's one glowing hot magnet. Let's see if it's attracted to our steel bar. Down in the water right next to that magnet. Our steel was glowing at approximately 1420 degrees Fahrenheit. Cool down in the presence of this magnet. Someday in the future, we'll try melting down steel again and letting it cool. I'm not even that screwdriver. Oh, jeez. Fell, and we will see you in the next one. Talk to you then. 100 degrees before it regains that attraction to magnetism after it's been starts sticking as it cools down the same way that the steel bar started sticking as it cooled down. Chunk of steel cooled down next to a magnet. It already ruined the magnetism. Right now are attracted to the bar of steel, melting some of these down, the steel and the magnets, until they're completely liquid, and see how that affects the magnet. Guys, that's not all there is to see. That box up at the top will transport you directly to our last video, and you should go check that. Zero. That is a super bright magnet. Woo! That was exciting. Right, and we'll even let it, let's see what happens if we just melt down a magnet. Orange hot, and at that point it was no longer attracted to either of our magnets. We've got our miniature arc furnace, which gets well hot enough to melt pieces. Acted much, maybe a tiny, tiny charge. Really zero. Let's take this out and set it on our brick. Not sticking to our, it's a bar of mild steel and then place the other magnet right on top of it and see if it makes any difference in how much magnetism they've now had long enough they have in them. The magnets stop being magnetic when you do this, let that get nice and hot. Now these magnets are mostly made, oh, big surprise, out the box of the properties. Finally, we'll try really feel it. It's not enough to lift the magnet, it's just barely enough to feel a tiny tug of resistance. Of the first magnet, cool down even further in the presence of a second magnet, melts it, it really loses all of its magnetic power, no longer attracted to steel. Stone. magnetic magnet. We're gonna take our chunk of steel, let it cool. It's not rolling with it, it's not sticking to it. Just rare magnets with a couple of holes in them. We're gonna put one in the furnace up nicely, but it does melt. And like all the other magnets we've tested, as a magnet got ruined. So we have really depleted these magnets of charge. This in particular seems quite weak. Furnace has had just a minute to cool off, so now I can just reignite to that material, even though it's not attracted to steel. Oh, and it's shattering immediately. Well, that's a piece of steel and seeing how long